Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for being a regular guest of the show. I know many of you are here bright and early, watching us live 5 days a week. We appreciate you very much. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Good morning, Quest Banning. Sign of Jonah. Dude, Sign of Jonah, I saw your picture. Stephanie showed me that you got of the Department of Government Efficiency bomber jacket. You're officially the first person to get one. Congrats. Good morning, John Rail. What's up, man? What's up? Joni Rankin. Latrell. Frickety. Team Mill 22. The lovely lady from mid-Missouri. Quantum Kitty. It wouldn't be the same without you. Southcott. We looked you up this weekend. Check out the island you live on. Pretty amazing. Crazy history. Like 5,000 BC or A Christmas song. This is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas song. It's Attack of the Drones. Podcast king Joe Rogan said on Sunday that the mysterious drones that have buzzed around the tri-state area, and that's New York, New Jersey, and John Ferguson, the CEO of a remote aircraft system company in Kansas, claimed in a drawn-out TikTok video on Saturday that the drones are attempting to smell either a gas leak or perhaps radioactive material.
Oh, God!
The only thing that like pisses me off about the conspiracy theories online is that it's like, as soon as somebody posts something like this, it sounds like a good, long, good, thorough explanation from someone who might be an expert. There's always somebody who's willing to trust the experts right away. And I'm just kind of more of the, I don't know, guys, maybe we should take a little time, try and figure things out, right? And like, no. And as much as I love my buddy Ben Baker down there in Southwest Missouri, who's posted the picture of him with the AR-15 when he's his plates, his armor plates, saying, no, there aren't going to be any drones here in Southwest Missouri. We love Ben. But probably not the best idea to just start randomly firing into the air. I remember my gun safety classes when I was a kid, 11 years old, in like 1999 or whatever, and not 99, like 90, like 11. So it was like, yeah, like 1990, I was taking my hunter safety course in Raytown, Missouri, like whatever situation I did. Aced the test, and the most important number one thing is that you always be aware of what's behind whatever you're shooting, and you don't want to shoot at random drones in the air with your firearms just because you never know, there could be an alien behind them. You don't want to hit the sweet little dear alien that could be levitating. But those who know that the drones, of course, are a psyop. The government is playing us on one hand and not talking about the things that they're doing in the other. I saw this morning that a woman who was released or who was given a commutation from Joe Biden, one of the thousands whose convictions he overturned with his executive authority, was a woman who was accused of diluting chemotherapy drugs, which for those of you who know my personal family history, my mother, Donna Jo Peterson, was the victim of a pharmacist who did something similar in Kansas City in the 1990s. She passed away. We don't know whether it was a result of the dilution of her chemotherapy drugs, but we have reasons to suspect that it was. And one of the pardons that Joe Biden, or commutations that Joe Biden has issued, appears to be a woman who committed the same crime for the same crime that a man served decades in federal prison for. Makes you wonder about the Biden administration, where their priorities are. But my priorities are finding out what those flashing lights are in the sky. I like the meme that Elon Musk shared yesterday, which showed a chart of all of the things, all of the images, and it showed like 747s, it showed like Cessna, all the different like things that fly. And it said, what are they? In New Jersey, everyone identifies it as drone. Or I also really like the memes that people posted where it's like that scene from Goodfellas where Henry Hill is like high on cocaine and he's paranoid and he's got a gun and he's driving around New Jersey looking for a helicopter chasing him, right? He's just like, oh my God. And his wife's like, oh my God, there's a helicopter chasing and they're doing blow and stuff like that. You got to understand, like, if you ever wonder where a lot of the weirdness and silliness of our fellow Americans comes from, that you see it online and the shenanigans, the behaviors, and a lot of the tinfoil hattery, you know what it would make more sense if you just remember, because you're probably not high, that a lot of people are on drugs. Just remember that when people are calling the hotline saying that they see flashing lights in the sky, that all the other druggies who don't have to get up for work in the next morning, who are joining us here live on the Wake Up America show, thank you. People have jobs and families and lives and careers. I'd say that there aren't some high-level drug users who aren't pulling it all off, and more power to, I guess. But just remember that a good percentage of your fellow citizens are drunk or on drugs, and so they're going to be seeing some interesting lights in the sky. John Miltimore texted this morning, am I talking Bitcoin? Yes, sir, you are. There you go. Yes, you are, John. I don't give John the topics until like 5 minutes before the show starts, but that's okay. John Miltimore joins us Mondays with Miltimore, and the bonus content is back. The bonus content is back, baby. So if you want to unlock it, remember it is $75 raised by the end of the show, which is so easy to hit if you just go to the For Liberty shop and you purchase some of our incredible products. This is like crunch time, and we're dealing with all of these like packages and logistics, making sure everybody gets their packages as quickly as we can. Sign of Jonah got his. I'm happy. If you guys are, some of you might be customers who are wondering, oh, where's my package, Austin? If you didn't get your tracking number and you do want it, just feel free to get in touch. Let us know. You can send me a text at the bottom of that screen, that bottom left-hand corner, and it's easy for me to route the package tracking through the rest of the team. So when you see that phone number at the bottom of the screen, that's not just your text line to tell me what's going on in your mind, although I do love to hear from you, and you can text me anytime at that number, 573-319-1586. But if you text that line down there at the bottom, that's a way to talk to me and to say, hey, Austin, this is what I think about this. You should have a guest on your show. Austin, you're a piece of crap, et cetera, right down there at that line. Now, you see another phone number here at the bottom of the screen. And I want you to text this line today. This is a different phone number, and this is for a different system. For those of you who need to get into some of our exclusive giveaways and our coupons and our discounts and things that we don't talk about anywhere else, and things that we send out before anybody else, to anybody else before, is our text messaging software. So I'd like you also to test it, because we made some upgrades to the back end of our system. So if you're not getting text messages from me and the For Liberty crew, then I'd like you to sign up today by texting the number 1776 to that number on the bottom of the screen, 844-558-9626. If you've never gotten a text messages from us before, if you have gotten text messages, then you can text that number at the bottom of the screen. Text the number 1776 to 844-558-9626. Drew Van Runkle says, Austin, how much do I have to donate for editorial control over the show? Squeeze me? Drew Van Runkle? What are you asking there, sir? Nelson65 wants to unlock the bonus content, and he donated $5. It's the most wonderful time of the year. He also donates his time. He shows in the morning. I tell you what you got to do, Drew Van Runkle. You got to show up like Nelson does at 5:30 in the morning to the studio and help us set up. So that's what if you want to have editorial control over the show, there you go, like Nelson. But as for those drones that have been spotted flying over the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, the government has been weighing in. The DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas responded to people asking, why can't we shoot down these drones? Take a listen.
President-elect Trump has put out a post on this. I want to put it up on the screen right now. He says, mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now, otherwise shoot them down. Your response?
Well, We are aware of the drone sightings. As I've said, I think there are more than 8,000 drones flown every day in the United States. With respect to the ability to incapacitate those drones, we are limited in our authorities.
Which is probably a good thing that they're limited in their authorities. You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Andy Opperman says he wore his Doge shirt in public 3 times now. He gets compliments each time. That's cool. They are limited in their authorities of what they can do with, and that's a good thing, right? They're probably not shooting down the drones, probably for a similar reason that they didn't shoot down the Chinese spy balloon over American airspace, because here's the thing. If they don't shoot down the drone, they looked at it as weak. If they do shoot down the drone and it falls and it hits an old lady in the head and she falls into traffic and then gets her head crushed by a semi-truck trailer, then it's the Biden administration's fault. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now, those are the types of decisions that we hire our representatives and hire police officers and FBI agents and Department of Homeland Security's allegedly to do to be able to keep the American homeland safe. But these are new threats that we haven't exactly dealt with yet. Are we dealing with them in Ukraine? Yes. Should we be involved in Ukraine? Probably not. But there are methods that can be used to deter drones. And to be honest, here's the problem with the question of shooting down property. If the property belongs to U.S. citizens, well, you can't just destroy the property of U.S. citizens without due process. Now, drones are supposed to emit a frequency that shows that they are properly registered. In theory, we should be able to determine whether or not these drones are domestic or foreign. But of course, you can always, if there's one thing that you can always count on, you can always count on the government to lie to you. John Ferguson, that guy that I was talking about earlier, the CEO of a remote aircraft system company in Kansas, says that the only reason why you would ever fly an unmanned aircraft at night is if you're looking for something. Although Ferguson did note in the clip that he doesn't think that the drones are nefarious. He says, my belief is they're trying to smell something on the ground. Gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever. And when they say they're smelling for radioactive material, apparently there have been drones that were developed specifically in response to the fears in the early years of the War on Terror back in the early 2000s, that there would be dirty bombs that would be brought into the United States. Does anybody remember was it a Jack Ryan movie that had was it Ben Affleck and Morgan Freeman? It was like The Sum of All Fears. And it was about somebody had brought a dirty bomb into a vending machine inside of an arena, and the president was there, and they set off the nuclear bomb. And so that was a big fear in the early 2000s, was that there would be dirty bombs. And so many of these drones are developed specifically for the purpose of detecting radiation in order to guard the United States against the possibility of a dirty bomb. Now, if there's in New Jersey, of course, one of the busiest ports in the United States, and of course, right across the river from New York City, there could be a heightened awareness. The government might have some kind of have had some kind of an assessment of a threat, of a potential threat, of a dirty bomb or of something similar and dangerous that they suspect might have been or is being attempted to be brought into the United States. That's a legitimate fear. I'm sure the sum of all fears. But those are serious concerns and the type of thing that you want the government to be on the alert for. And again, of course, if you work for the government, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? I hear a lot of people who on December 7th were talking about the United States could have prevented Pearl Harbor and we had advanced knowledge and all this kind of stuff. And it's the same with 9/11. Oh, we had advanced knowledge of 9/11, but hindsight is really 20/20, and people have a really hard time seeing what's exactly right in front of their face or just under their noses. I mean, are you surprised that people are people and that they have like the same blind spots as the rest of us? Right? Government employees are, like the rest of us, except dumber, except just a little, maybe on average, a little dumber. More on average, they're more average. I'm sure some of them, and some I assume are good people. Smash that like button. We'd love to get your digits today. Today we're doing a campaign. We'd love you to join the text messaging list. You can find the phone number to join that. Texting the number 1776. Text that to the phone number that you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. See that number, 844-558-9626? Type that in, send a message, 1776, to the text line that you see there at the bottom of the screen. Frickety says, I'm sure there are thousands of threats to sift through, which are legit. Exactly. I mean, ask yourself, before 9/11, if there was a memo that said, Osama bin Laden determined to attack the United States, flying planes into buildings, now you would say, oh my God, they're, you could say on one hand, they're so stupid and they didn't see this threat. And then on another hand, you could say, oh, they deliberately ignored the threat so they could have an excuse to go into war, right? There's people who take that position, right? That it's, it's more of a nefarious conspiracy, right? But when you have a note on top of a pile of other notes, threats and threats and threats and threats and threats, it can be difficult to determine which threat is really real. And in a scenario where drones might be flying all over one of the busiest ports in the United States, and specifically some of these drones may be there for detecting radiation or perhaps biological chemical weapons, I think it's entirely possible that there may have been a threat. There may have been something that they determined could be dangerous. And if those drones are government drones, they're not going to tell us that because they don't want to panic people. And unfortunately, of course, people are going to panic anyway. And of course, some people are just wired to be terrified of everything. And some people are on drugs. And don't get mad at me. Some people are seeing lights in the sky that aren't there. Again, if you're just tuning in the Wake of America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. Click the like button, would you? She's got the golden handcuffs. Did anyone see the fainting video? No, I did not see the fainting video, but I would like to see the fainting video, right? And the government isn't denying that people are seeing drones, by the way.
There's no question that people are seeing drones, and I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing.
That looks like just a plane, right? It looks like an airplane. Not everything that is shining a line in the sky is an airplane, guys, or is a drone, guys. Fixed wing aircraft. Well, yeah, it might be just a fixed wing aircraft. But what I would do if I was a young man, again, if I was really into the kind of shenanigans and trouble, before I started making trouble for the government and for statists and for authoritarians and little progressive shits of left and right, before I was making them miserable and their lives hell, I probably would have, when everybody's freaking out about the drones, do you know what I would do? Fly a drone. I'd get my drone, I'd go out and start flying it. Because, that's how people are. They troll. They like to troll. Everybody starts, spotting certain amounts of drones. Think about how people behave on the internet, right? So it's like one person starts crying and then everybody's like, yeah, cry, you idiot. And they all pull out their phones. They're like, ha, 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 pointing, and they're like, oh, you're a disaster. Somebody falls on their face or gets kicked in the balls and it's like, yeah, right, you suffer, bitch. I don't know you, but I love to watch your pain. I drink your tears. All right, that's just how people are. So when you see, and you just have to accept it, right? It's impossible to change human nature, right? There's no governmental system that's going to make people not be assholes. You just can't, right? It's impossible. So if there's a few drones that get spotted, what do you think all the people on 4chan are doing, right? What do you think all the people with the Pepe frogs in their profile pics are doing right now? They're grabbing their drones and they're flying them into the air and they're attaching Christmas lights to them and ho 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 and Merry Christmas, and they're all probably pranking us and playing jokes on us. And meanwhile, there's people out there who are doing blow, doing meth. They're grabbing their cell phones and they're like, oh, something like the sky, man. Whoa, whoa, it's drones, man. And then they get really angry at the rest of us and they're like, there's probably a really easy explanation for that. But it's like if you're in the Midwest, if you're in Missouri, say you're where I'm at in Jefferson City, and you start hearing the sound of approaching hoofbeats, ba-da-bum, 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 and you're out in the fields and stuff, and there's a little there's a hill where you can kind of you can't see around the hill, but you could hear it right in the Ozarks, and it's beautiful misty mountains here in the Ozarks, right? And then you hear this ba-da-bum, 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 and the guy who sees the drones and is all coked up, right? And then is snorting a little fentanyl with his meth, and he's got a cell phone and he's typing furiously. He's like, it's zebras, man. There's zebras and they're coming around the corner, right? And in my non-stone mind, I'm like, that's probably horses. So is it all horses or is it zebras? Well, if you hear hoofbeats in mid-Missouri, think horses, not zebras. I don't know. Maybe it is zebra. Maybe it's alien zebras. I don't know.
Let's bring in Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. Can you clear up the confusion here?
Absolutely, George, and thank you very much for having me. There's no question that people are seeing drones, and I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing the drone sightings. Some of those drone sightings are, in fact, drones. Some are manned aircraft that are commonly mistaken for drones, and we do see duplicative reporting. But there's no question that drones are being sighted. Let me set the record straight here, George. There are thousands of drones flown every day in the United States. Recreational drones, commercial drones. That is the reality. And in September of 2023, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, changed the rules so that drones could fly at night. And that may be one of the reasons why now people are seeing more drones than they did before, especially from dawn to dusk. And so that is the reality. But I want to assure the American public that we are on it. We are working in close coordination with state and local authorities, and it is critical, as we all have said.
Now, I know we all hate Secretary Mayorkas. He lies. So you should always usually assume the opposite when it comes to a government official. However, in this case, it sounds like I know, Austin, don't do that. Just confirm the biases, attack the left every time, even if they actually say something right. It's only true if a Republican or a Libertarian says it, Austin. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I just can't. It's too exhausting, man. I don't know how people keep up with the grifting, where they just kind of lie to their audiences all the time, and it's just, I'm just, you know what I am capable of lying? Because I'm too lazy. Because the problem with having an audience and doing a podcast like this is that you're always incentivized to bullshit people more, to hype the threat and terrify the shit out of them so they'll buy your water filters or whatever. And thank you, Andy Opperman, by the way, for helping to unlock the bonus content. Looks like we did unlock the bonus content today, guys. Speaking of grift, the grift shop is open. But the thing about lying to your audience is that eventually you get caught or you could just say, oh, I just changed my mind or something like that, right? But eventually you have to remember your lies, and you have to really double down. You have to really do your homework, right? I did all my homework on what was true and correct, and now I'm trying to share it with my audience and trying to really search for truth. And sometimes that pisses people off because it doesn't confirm people's biases. But I guess I'm too lazy to go out and find out whatever the alternative history of, theory of history is that we're all just buying into because some coked out meth head with a Twitter account posted it online. I don't know. I just want to be myself. I just want to be straight up. What's up? Ken Shiroryu. He says he has no idea what's going on because the Biden administration isn't real. Mill-ops happening beyond their control, and this Lex Luthor mofo pretending to be in power projection. Could be. Frickety says he encourages encouraging freak out, not in fear-mongering, encouraging freakouts. Rational thinking from AP is one. Well, I'm glad that somebody enjoys it. We're a small but powerful band of sorcerers here. Speaking of the magic on the Biden administration, is beginning to fade. Perhaps the luster started to wear off. Was there ever some luster from the Biden admin?
One thing I've always believed about public service, and especially about the presidency, is the importance of asking yourself, have we left the country better shape than we found it? Today, I can say with every fiber of my being, with all my heart, the answer to that question is a resounding yes.
What? What did you say? I mean, this is a man who does not have children who he has to buy a minivan for. Every time I get the ads, because we're zeroing in, we're thinking it's going to be a Toyota Sienna, potentially, right? I say we, but it's me. And in order for us to accommodate our growing family. And if you haven't tried to buy a used car, the market has been shit since coronavirus, COVID-19. Like, to buy these depreciating assets, and then Donald Trump's coming in and talking about raising the tariffs. Well, it's only on new vehicles that are being imported, and just buy used. Well, what do you think's going to happen when they raise when the prices of new vehicles, when the supply goes down, motherfuckers? It's going to be more expensive. Yeah, just wait until you see the bonus content. You've already unlocked it. We're definitely going to, I think you guys need to have a discussion about tariffs and how they impact, people who are trying to, grow their families. More upward pressure on prices is not what the United States needs right now. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, Kamala Harris apparently not done. She's out speaking at the Democrats' holiday reception about her future.
As a result of your leadership and your support, the National Finance Committee held more than 700 events across the country and raised nearly $700 million.
And it all went to Hunter Biden's nose.
An historic achievement, which without a doubt made our campaign stronger.
It was stronger. I mean, stronger.
Hear me when I say this. That spirit that fuels the countless hours and days and months of work that you have put into this, that spirit can never be defeated. Our spirit is not defeated. We are not defeated.
Are you sure?
Let's be clear about it.
What about that? Are you sure? Let's be clear about this. It sounds like you're clear as mud, lady.
We are strong. We are clear about why we are in this. And because you're here right now, I say, again, thank you, because not only are you clear about all of that, you're willing to put in the hard work. And that work must continue. We cannot let any circumstance or situation or individual ever take away our power.
Pretty sure they're
to know why we do what we do and our ability to then get that work done. Hear me when I say this. That spirit that fuels the countless hours and days and months of work that you have put into this, that spirit can never be defeated.
I'm pretty sure it's defeated, lady. This sounds like an insurrection, says Marty Stiles. Yes. Pat Lindsay, 91. Growing family, you guys have another one? Yes, we are going to have another one, just not immediately. We're wondering, should we listen to the doctors when they say, wait a little bit so that Steffi's body can recover, or should we just kind of like plow through them, like bump, 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 just start shooting out kids like, Pac-Man pellets all over the place, right? What do you guys think? More babies? More babies? CNN reports Kamala is seriously considering a run for governor in California in 2026 because she hasn't eaten enough dirt.
Tell us what the likelihood is of Harris running for governor.
What she's been saying to people over the last couple of weeks, donors, other supporters that she's been talking with, is you haven't seen the last of me. I'm not going quietly into the night. Advisors, people close to her, are debating about what that means. They do not want her final official act ever to be essentially certifying Donald Trump's win over her, especially 4 years after January.
Imagine winning like a couple of like smaller elections and then just getting tapped for all the bigger offices and losing them all and destroying your party's chances. And then you're like, I'm going to go run a state.
January 6th. And so they look at this governor's race in California in 2026, and it seems to them like a layup, essentially, that she would probably clear the field, or mostly clear the field, and she would get to be governor of California. It's a pretty good job, right? It was good enough for Ronald Reagan and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jerry Brown. But if she does that, that means that she couldn't turn around and run for president again in 2028, right? She'd need to essentially declare right away. And that is what it really comes down to, because there are people close to her who say she didn't get a fair shot this year. It wasn't up to what she could have done, and look how well she performed anyway. She should get to go again in 2028. And then there are ones who say, look, with where things are with the Democratic Party, she would not have a cleared field, rather, in the Democratic primary, and could lose the nomination. And to come off of 2024 into that would be really terrible.
Yes. COD says he's refreshed a couple times. He can't tell if the chat is working on Rumble. It's here, bud. We see ya. What's up? COD. COD. Daylight come and Kamala go home. Daylight come and Kamala go home. Dave. Me say day, 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 yo. Andy Opperman says, go much beyond that, and it becomes trauma for the eldest. Best not to have any memory of being an only child. Boy, you guys make sound that having more kids sound kind of scary, but, oh, geez. Will says his wife almost died. Yikes. That's scary stuff. I cannot almost lose Stephanie, man. I would just like losing both of my legs and both of my arms and my head and also my left eyebrow. You can't have that. Enjoy Hazel a bit, somebody says. I will do that. We'll do that. Best cover, Stillbringer. Good morning, guys. Nice to see y'all. Hope that you're feeling good today. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope that you are enjoying the holiday season. Maybe happy Hanukkah as well. If you guys missed it on Friday, my brother Justin Peterson came in and he sang a bunch of Christmas carols. It was beautiful. Hope that you guys will check out last Friday's episode, the Mistletoe and Liberty Christmas family special. So make sure that you guys check that out. Joni Rankin said she had 4 kiddos, 2 years apart, but if I had to do it again, I would have pumped it out faster. Oh my God. Speaking of pumping it out faster, ABC News is pumping out millions of dollars faster and faster to settle a defamation suit brought on by Donald Trump.
ABC News has agreed to pay $15 million to settle a defamation suit brought on by Donald Trump. Trump filed the suit against the network and its top anchor after George Stephanopoulos incorrectly asserted 10 times in an interview that Trump was found liable for rape in the civil suit with E. Jean Carroll. As part of the settlement, ABC News published an editor's note expressing regret over the statements. ABC News has agreed to pay
Oh, damn. They gotcha. They got you, George. MSNBC, though, they seem to agree that ABC had the right of it.
The press is in a difficult position. Everyone understands that. That doesn't change the obligation to be straightforward and objective when it comes to Donald Trump.
Sure.
I would just say, I mean, this
straightforward and objective. MSNBC says that they have a responsibility to be straightforward and objective when it comes to Donald Trump.
has a real chilling effect. I mean, shout out to the standards department. Okay, standards is always making sure that we are keeping the bar high and substantive and accurate. But what George Stephanopoulos said in that interview, I mean, it seems to hold up with what the judge said after the fact. And now his news organization and himself, George Stephanopoulos himself, is paying $1 million of his own money to the lawyers, and ABC at $15 million. It's insane.
You got to be careful, man. 15 million bucks. That's a lot of money. George Stephanopoulos, here he is in 2015.
Governor Clinton has a character problem, but I take it that your line of
Clinton has no character.
Your line of counterattack is that it's well, I mean, he has not denied that he has engaged in marital infidelity.
Bill Clinton's passed his character test throughout his life and throughout this campaign. And he's shown it through his commitments to real fights. And what he's going to do in this campaign is focus on what's important to the American people, on the jobs and the education. That's what the American people care about.
Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape? Well, actually, what you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape.
I don't understand how you can do that. So you're comfortable with Donald Trump being found liable for rape?
Governor Clinton has a character problem.
Oh,
but
George. $15 million. That cost him.
Please, no.
That cost him $15 million.
Someone who's been found liable for rape. Well, actually, what you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape. I don't understand how you can do that. So you're comfortable with Donald Trump being found liable for rape?
Governor.
Damn, George Stephanopoulos. That cost him $15 million. Our boy Kash Patel looks like he's sailing into the nomination for the FBI director.
Not a single Republican senator has raised any significant public concern about Patel's nomination. Now, my last guest, Senator Whitehouse, said maybe that will come in the hearings, maybe it'll be quiet, but it still is kind of an eye-opener worth discussing. As the New York Times put it this week, Patel appears, at least for now, to be on a glide path for confirmation.
Yes, cash money. CNN host Van Jones admits that Donald Trump is smarter than all of them.
How the hell did Donald Trump figure out the mainstream media is the fringe and the fringe is now the mainstream? How the hell did Donald Trump figure out? I mean, Joe Rogan is obvious, right? Like, we knew the guy had a big audience. It's not like we were like stunned, but like, how the hell was he, the 78-year-old guy who doesn't even have a computer and still like writes handwritten notes? How did he become the guy who cracked the code on, to your point, running a cultural, I don't even want to say campaign, running
it was a movement. Look,
heading a cultural movement versus a campaign.
Every one of your people knows Elon. Listen. Yeah, so everybody keeps, the problem is you have a framework in your mind that, how can Donald Trump? Guys, can we cut it out? Donald Trump is not an idiot. Donald Trump, let me just be very clear. Donald Trump is smarter than me, you, and all critics. You know how I know? Because he has the White House, the Senate, the House.
Totally agree.
The popular vote. He has a massive media ecosystem bigger than the mainstream built around him and for him, and a religious fervor in a political movement around him. And his best buddy is the richest person in the history of the world, and the most relevant Kennedy is with him. This dude is a phenomenon. He is the most powerful human on earth and in our lifetime. And we're still saying, well, how was this guy? We look like idiots to ordinary.
You're totally right.
Oh, doesn't it feel good to pay less with Donald Trump as president of the United States? They're like, no, oh my God, Donald Trump is president of the United States. I'm just thinking about it here, January 20th.
From now on, it's going to be America first, okay? America first.
God bless America. And bless you. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. The Wake Up America show is a 5-day-a-week live stream, Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a 2-hour live talk show starring me, AP, for liberty. And if you love freedom and if you love America, then you're in the right place. I consider myself something of a libertarian nationalist. And a lot of people get the idea of libertarian confused with like the political party. They're like, oh, if the libertarians would ever get their act together, it's a political party. It's like, no. I'm not talking about the political party. I'm talking about libertarian nationalism, the ideas, right? Small L libertarian, right? Small L nationalism. I'm a libertarian nationalist. I'm a libertarian who believes in the United States of America and our exceptionalness. I love America, and I hope that you do too. If you want to get updates and comments and coupons and deals before they go live to the rest of the public, then you need to sign up for our text messaging list. If you see that phone number at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, that's a different phone number than the one that we usually do for like text messaging, like, hey, I want to say hi to Austin and what's going on? How are you? You can text me at that bottom left-hand corner, but today's campaign is I hope that you will join us by texting the list. Oh, look at that. It looks like it might be on some screens, even cut off a little bit. Look at that. I'm going to pop this up so that you guys can see it. There we go at the top of the screen. I'm even going to get rid of the other one just because I think it's probably distracting you. I don't want to confuse people. So give me just a second here. The text line 8567309 8675309. I got it. Doesn't that look much better? There we go. I did that live. Bitches. Latrell, you gotta read the manifesto, man. It's like written for people just like you, all right? It's nice to get shop over, says Frickety. Yes, it's our marketing number. That is true. Text the number 1776 to 844-558-9626. That is our marketing line. Yes, it is. But you also get like coupons and discounts that a lot of people don't get. Joni Rankin asks, where's the bonus content? Jeez. She's like, give me the bonus content. It's coming. I use the bonus content as a way to transition from here to a guest. And John Miltimore, our guest, will join us live at 8 a.m. Central Time. So the bonus content will be here in 12 or 13 minutes. So make sure that you keep an eye on that one, okay? Kim McCurry says that she screenshot it and she will update after work. Thank you very much, Kim. We appreciate you. The more, the merrier. We're getting very aggressive in 2025 to grow the network, to grow the shop, and to grow the Wake Up America show. So I have 2 or 3 more stories to go. Let's see if I can get them in time because we got Miltimore at 8. And who do we have at 8:30? I don't think I've even teased him out yet. Oh yeah, JD Tuchili. Okay, I'm excited to talk to JD Tuchili. He wrote a nice piece over in Reason Magazine about ghost guns and how people are trying to use the murder of that United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, to peddle ghost gun bans. There have been more discussions surrounding ghost guns because apparently the ghost gun bans, ghost gun was used allegedly in the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, although lots of details are yet to be fully and hardcore confirmed yet, of course, until the trial goes forward. Look, it's Liz says, apply my $7 to bonus content. Done, Liz. Bonus content unlocked. Of course, it had already been unlocked.
Obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable. But what I think...
But when I have a rule that whenever somebody makes a statement and then they add a but to it, everything before the but is a lie. Start it over. Let's hear it again, Bernie.
Elizabeth Warren obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable.
Are you sure?
But what I think has happened in the last few months is that what you have seen rising up is people's anger at a health insurance industry.
People's anger, A-N-G-A, anger.
Which denies people the health care that they desperately need while they make billions and billions of dollars in profit. Yeah. Elizabeth Warren obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable.
Should have done it in the face, I guess, said Bernie. But he understands the anger, the anger. Chris Rock hosted Saturday Night Live last weekend. This is this video here, about to get my show demonetized over on the other platform. And that's all right now. All right, so the bonus content is on its way. I don't want you guys to go away. Just go to forlibertyshop.com. Do a little last-minute Christmas shopping. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. Number 4, libertyshop.com. If you text that number, you might even get a little coupon to shop away. We'll be right back with John Miltimore. Bitcoin to the moon. Have you guys been investing in Bitcoin? We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Tale of two tariff strategies. What do a 19th century president and a modern day trade policies shape our lives more than we realize, from the price we pay for goods to the jobs we rely on? What are your thoughts on the balance between free trade and protectionism? Share this video and join the conversation. Let's debate how history can guide our economic choices today.
tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state! Reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network at forlibertynetwork.com. I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks so much for being a part of our show and joining us live. It's so cool to have an audience of people who get up early like this and want to talk about freedom. Speaking of freedom, Bitcoin has suddenly rocketed higher, passing its previous all-time high and climbing to over $106,000 per Bitcoin as incoming President Donald Trump confirms his plan for a Bitcoin game changer. Joining us now to discuss that is John Miltimore. It's Mondays with Miltimore. How you doing, Johnny boy?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about you, AP?
All right, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Yeah, glad to have you here, John. Talk to us about Bitcoin, man. We've been talking about Bitcoin for years, right? Did you ever own any Bitcoin? Did you ever think about becoming a Bitcoin billionaire, John?
I bought Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. I wish I would own more than I do, right? like everyone else. But it's one of the greatest stories of our lifetime. Like we heard, for generations, people like Hayek talking about sound money, and we've actually implemented something that looks very much what he was talking about 40 years ago. I was just sparring with people on LinkedIn over this. People who, everyone wants to poo-poo Bitcoin and say it's not real, it's not money, it's not this. You talk to these people, they really haven't thought very much about it. They just don't like the idea of it. They really haven't, thought about it, looked into it deeply. People say there's no value there. There is value there. These are things that are fun to talk about. And 100,000, it's great. It's gonna keep going up. And like, this isn't investment advice. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a pullback. This is how it works. But in 5 years, is Bitcoin going to be worth more? I would bet $10,000 today on that.
I'm reading the Forbes magazine this morning. It says that the Fed's biggest nightmare is suddenly coming true as Bitcoin's price surges. A leak reveals Russia could be poised to beat the U.S. to a Bitcoin reserve. The Federal Reserve has warned its biggest nightmare could come true in 2025. We believe stagflation may be coming in 2025. The biggest nightmare the Federal Reserve may face. That's economic stagnation and roaring inflation. And the analysts are pointing to a report which predicted a rebound in inflation in 2025 and not a softening to justify Fed's interest cuts. Last week, an influential billionaire investor, Ray Dalio, warned of a looming debt crisis. Of course, the U.S. debt has soared over recent years, as we've discussed quite a bit on this show. Inflation of over 10% forced the Federal Reserve to hike interest rates at a historical clip, pushing up debt interest payments and fueling fears of a, quote, death spiral. Give us your take, though, on the dangers of stagflation. And, Russia wants to create a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. Is it wise for the United States to follow suit?
I'm a little bit nervous about governments getting involved in this to the degree that we're seeing, to be honest. I don't think that even governments, Bitcoin is bigger than government. Like, I could see this causing, short-term, spikes in the price. Sure. Like if suddenly both Russia and the U.S. look at this, I'm not as jazzed about the idea of a Bitcoin, strategic reserve as I've talked to other people privately about this. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I don't think this is not what Nakamoto was thinking about, although not that he went into it at this level. Let's talk about Bitcoin in its value just for a second. This is what I was sparring with on LinkedIn with people. People said it has no inherent value. If you go back and read that, original white paper in 2008, you can see very clearly what the value is. Bitcoin's not just money; it's a payment system. If you look at today, what's the market cap of Visa these days? It's about $600 billion. What does Visa do? You have a card and you can go pay for things, right? Well, Bitcoin works very much the same way, but you don't need a third party, right? This is something people that they can pay each other. It's peer to peer. That is the value of Bitcoin. You do have, a sound money that is not going to sit there and be expanded by, you can't print more of it. It's going to have a cap, but it's also something that just allows people to do transactions amongst themselves. And we're trading today. A guy was telling me, Bitcoin's not money, and people have no idea how many transactions we have every day with Bitcoin. How much is being $1 billion a day in transactions are happening. You can buy your home in Bitcoin. You can buy a cup of coffee. You can do all these things. It's clearly money, but it has the advantage of increasing in value over time, and that's what we're seeing.
And a lot of that has to do with scarcity, because unlike the U.S. dollar, you can't just create more Bitcoins out of thin air. Right, famous economist Peter Schiff, who's very libertarian like us, he hates Bitcoin, and he's like, well, what about the Bitcoin Cash, and what about all the other cryptocurrencies, et cetera? Right, yeah, but you can't exchange those for something, right? You can't go out with Dogecoin and buy a cup of coffee these days, right? Hopefully one day, because I got some Dogecoin. But you can use Bitcoin transactionally. So a lot of the skeptics have been proven wrong over the years on Bitcoin, John. And I mean, you'd kind of be crazy if the U.S. does commit to a strategic reserve. You'd kind of be crazy not to buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin will be at $1 million, and we'll still be hearing the same arguments from people that it's a mirage, it's not real, I can't hold it. But they haven't been thinking deeply about other money. Look at what's backing U.S. dollars. This is my first question.
The U.S. military.
Yeah, well, exactly. But that doesn't count.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It
John.
really doesn't.
Yes, it does.
The U.S. military can't keep the value of the dollar.
It can. It can say you either take this piece of paper here, or we'll throw you in jail. Legal tender laws.
Yeah, they don't work. They we've seen historically they've failed miserably. But to me, I'll go back. Bitcoin is a sign of economic reality. In all this fake everything, a fake culture, fake money. Bitcoin is something real, and what I find ironic is people don't look at it as real at all. Again, but I don't think a lot of these people. I don't know if Peter Schiff is. I imagine a guy like Schiff has looked more closely.
Well, he's invested in gold, right? So he's always.
I think there's other interests. Yeah. I think he has other financial interests.
He's a gold guy. You got to watch out for those guys, right? So it's like they're the perma bulls and the perma bears. On anything, you have to look where they're invested, look where their interests and their values lie, and then you have to align that with reality and see if it lines up. And a lot of times,
Paul Krugman is another one. Krugman, won a Nobel Prize. He knows more about economics than I do. But you can go back and find Krugman talking about Bitcoin when it was $300. At the time, and saying it's a massive bubble and it's gonna pop, right? Well, if you would have just ignored Paul Krugman and put $5,000 in Bitcoin at the time, you'd be retired today. You'd never, it'd be,
I like the reverse Kramer index. I don't know if you saw when.
I have.
Did you see Donald Trump opening the morning bell at the NASDAQ last week, and he was getting interviewed by Jim Cramer? And Trump roasted Kramer about he's like because he's like, what do you think the stock market's going to do? And he's like, well, the stock market can go down, it could go up, I could predict something, but then I could be wrong, as you well know about that, Jim Cramer. And I was just like, damn, he's so good.
He is, and there's two things.
The U.S. dollar is backed by Trump's roasting. We need exchange rate for Trump roasts, and we'll exchange them as NFTs. John, what do you say? We'll create a new marketplace for Trump roasting
NFTs.
videos.
What happened to those? We haven't been hearing about those.
Non-fungible tokens, man. I know they're going to come back, man. All those GIFs and JPEGs that I downloaded of those monkeys smoking cigarettes and wearing sunglasses. Those are really going to pay off one day, John. It's not like the tulip bubble at all. It's not. It's not a bubble. But Bitcoin is different because you can exchange it for goods and services. It exists as a barter. The problem is the government wants to get their filthy hands all over it. Right now, every time I go, to H&R Block or whatever for tax time, they're always like, "Do you own any cryptocurrency?" And it's kind of like, am I self-incriminating if I say yes or no or something like that? It's like you have to report it on your taxes, and it's like apparently your audit risk increases if you say that you are an owner of cryptocurrency, John. So there be danger in them cryptocurrency gold hills. You know what I mean?
There are, and I will say, like, that was my primary concern with cryptos, initially, was that the government would never let it work, right? That it's a threat to the Federal Reserve. I still have some concerns there. I think that's why you saw after the election, cryptos have been, just hot, right? Like they've been surging, because I think that concern is suddenly, at least for the next 4 years, that goes away. I don't think people think, Trump is bullish on Bitcoin. He's not going to be somebody that I mean, there was even talk about, cryptos not being subject to capital gains and things like that. I'd love to see that. Like that's one of the things here. Like, technically, if you're holding Bitcoin and you're spending it on things, are you supposed to be paying, capital gains because you bought Bitcoin here, and when it was this value, and now it's up here and you're spending it. Things like that are a concern. I'd love to see the Trump administration come in and say, with cryptos, no, none of this is going to be subject to capital gains. I don't know if that will actually happen, but hey, I for everyone listening, I know very smart people that refuse to invest in Bitcoin because they don't trust it. And I don't like giving people advice about anything, let alone money. But I hit a point here 3-4 years ago where Bitcoin, especially other cryptos, I think have potential. It's here to stay. It's becoming, you have all, like BlackRock, you have all these other places that are starting, it's being institutionalized, and it's only going to make it a more stable, decrease the risk. So I'm take it for what it's worth. I'm a believer. I think we're going to see over the next 10 years, the price of Bitcoin continue to climb.
So I'm seeing some experts this morning predicting that Bitcoin could hit $125,000 a coin in 2024. Just imagine that, right? You go to the stock markets, and it's like, if you're lucky, if you get a good growth fund, you do some nice safe investment, you could get maybe as high as 6%, right, return on your mutual funds or your funds, or you could go plow it all into Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and make 25% of your investment back, like, right away. It's insane. A quarter of value increase over 1 year. I mean, is it really truly worth that? I mean, people are talking about the tulip craze and stuff, John, and bubbles and things, and you're making a facial expression over there. Tell me what you feel.
I think those are poor comparisons, and I'll go back to that. There is real value in Bitcoin when you talk about peer-to-peer transactions. It's a monetary. It's not just a coin. It is a financial system that allows. You ever try sending money internationally? It's hard.
Yeah,
it's expensive, right? That with Bitcoin you can do it instantaneously. It's very simple. There's value in that. Now, I will say, these wild fluctuations, I wouldn't advise anyone say, like, I'm going to go take $100,000 and go buy a Bitcoin and then try to. I don't like that kind of. I don't like the speculation with it. Like, what I find, and you don't want to be staring at your Bitcoin either. Okay, this isn't something like where you become consumed with it. I think the best way is to say, I'm going to put $100 in my paycheck and just turn that into Bitcoin each week, and then you're not watching, like you just start to build over time, kind of like you would a 401k or something. Like, you're putting it in, letting it grow. Maybe Bitcoin does get to 125, and guess what? It might be going back down to 70 or 65.
Yeah,
very fast. We will see more of that. This is how whenever you're trading any commodity, some have wilder swings than others. We're going to see that with Bitcoin, especially as more people start talking about it. You're going to, see surges and pullbacks. I think, the best way, if you're going to put money in, do it a bite at a time, build over time. Don't stare at it and get nervous about it. Just trust it in the long term, and I think in 5 years you'll be happy. In 10 years you'll be happy.
There's this old fella who lives here in Jefferson. He's kind of a local muckety muck. His name's Hal Dooley. He used to be a regular guest on this show, and back in my radio days, I convinced. Well, I mean, I didn't convince him, but I mean, I was talking about Bitcoin on the radio, and he apparently took some of his retirement savings and put them into Bitcoin. I wasn't like telling him, take out your retirement savings, put them in Bitcoin. One day he shows up and he's like, I showed him how to set it up and how to make a buy. And then he comes in and he's like, I put a portion of my retirement into Bitcoin. And it was like, this was back in like 2020, 2021 or something. And then it instantly lost like 40% of the value of what he had done. And he was cross with me. He was cross. And I was like, I didn't tell you to buy it. I just showed you how and told you what it was. I'm like, like this is, you can't watch it, right? It was like a few weeks later, it had like been destroyed in its value. And then it was like another year goes by. Apparently I was like, just don't sell it. Just don't look at it. Don't sell it. Set yourself up for like a weekly or a monthly buy and just forget it. And then, it was like a year or two later, it had like doubled in value or something. It was like 75 or 80,000. And I remember I got in trouble with my bosses that day on air because I cracked a bottle of champagne and was drinking on air at like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning with Hal. And that was when it was like 60 or 70. Now I saw him the other day and it was like, it's 100,000. And he's like, thanks for telling me about Bitcoin, Austin. And I was just like, you're welcome, Hal. It's like, don't kill me.
He owes you a bottle of scotch or something this Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hal's a good buddy, and he came to my wedding, and I really appreciate him. So he's a good dude. But I'm speaking to John Miltimore this morning, another good dude. He joins us on Mondays. It's Mondays with Miltimore. It's a branded segment, and I bring John Miltimore on because he and I are of very much of like mind in many ways. In some ways where we differ, I think it's more the merrier for certain debates and discussions around things that, I may be a tad bit more hawkish than he on certain things. I don't know. You probably didn't get a chance to read the manifesto yet that I dropped, John Miltimore. Did you see that I dropped it, or did you not see it?
I did. I was reading it, and my wife kept bothering me when I was reading it. I'm about halfway through it.
Okay, all right. So halfway through it. The question of the non-aggression principle's role in libertarian philosophy, I think, deserves a revisiting, John. And my proposal is that we scrap that in favor of the common law, which has served us for centuries, which is a very useful way, a practical way for us to handle disputes among parties, right? And to look at this in the framework of a form of libertarian nationalism that does place the individual above the concept of the nation state, right? We're not China, where the government works for us, not the other way around. So it's a libertarian nationalism, but that the idea of a nation state is a valid idea for us to be able to protect, preserve, defend our liberties and our individual rights. Governments are instituted among men, all that, et cetera, et cetera. My problem with the libertarian movement, specifically in the United States, is that it seems to take the NAP to such illogical conclusions that it strikes me as not all of these people can be fools or idiots. It seems that there's some kind of poison pill in the libertarian thought process that is sort of hamstringing us in a way, not just from electoral success, but from making sense. It leads us to absurdities like can the child consent though? Heroin to 5-year-olds, trans the kids, right? Because the government shouldn't get involved because that's aggression, et cetera, right? It's kind of what happens with the non-aggression principle is it kind of creates what I would call a squatter's paradise, where somebody's squatting on your property. You say it's clearly a violation of personal property, but how much force or violence can be used to remove them, right? Oh, well, you're not using proportional force, et cetera, et cetera. So many inconsistencies and problems with a base tenet that people claim is the end-all be-all of libertarianism. I say it should be scrapped. How do you respond to that, John?
Well, I don't think I propose scrapping it, but I'm sympathetic to where you're coming from. I've ran into this, like I got a lot of, friends who are not just libertarians, but are ANCAPs, right? The anarcho, basically anarchists, right? Like they don't, I'm a minarchist. I think the state does, should exist, and it's a necessary evil, which is basically the Thomas Paine point of view. But I've had some of these conversations that you're alluding to as well, and I've thought about it. Things like, I've gotten into sparring, friendly sparring over something like, spanking a child. Yeah. And I have 3 children. Austin, as a parent, this might, children need to be, I do believe in discipline. Now, I'm not an ornery parent. but some children, I have one child I never had to spank in his life. He's one I could give him with a look, a hard word, that was enough. My daughter, I had to spank when she was little a few times. Respect mattered. In my littlest, I did probably 20 times in his life, gave him a little. Now, I was always calm when I did it, but some parents are horrified. They're libertarians are horrified by the idea that you'd ever use, sort of
force.
A corporal punishment.
You're initiating force. You're destroying their mentality. You're turning them into little status violent assholes because you've spanked your child. You don't love them. You're a violent, angry statist. You're taking out your mental illness on them. Yeah, they'll say that kind of stuff.
They will. I think people weren't saying maybe, but they were thinking it if they weren't, and look, I think there is a time as a parent to do that. And I think that's one example of we need to be practical about these things. I think, if we sat and came up with a list of some of these things, I know there's things that we could think of that I would probably say, yeah, you have to, you should, whether it's, the example in the news now, kids being able to transition, right? Like a child can get to determine that, or a parent, right? I don't think that's something, for years we had, you can't get a tattoo in this country, right? If you're 16, you can't get a tattoo. But we're seeing now chemical castration, thousands of kids, we know now, like we're talking about 10, 15,000 kids from insurance claims that this is happening. I don't think that's
right.
good.
The transing the kids really presents a big, giant problem. But I think nowhere is there more of a problem with the NAP than in the understanding of foreign policy. If you try and apply a philosophical principle as broadly as able to be broadly interpreted as the non-aggression principle to something like foreign policy, you're going to have a bad time. And what I've noticed too is that a lot of bias confirmation goes on with our people, and they use the non-aggression principle as like a for them an argument force multiplier that really what it does, all it multiplies is absurdities, where you'll find anarchists or libertarians sympathizing with Osama bin Laden or Hamas, right? It's this kind of like absurd outcomes that you get. And if the non-aggression principle is sort of like the tool that you're using to arrive at that conclusion, you might need to revisit the tool. Like the way, like as I grow older and the more I understand about foreign policy, the more I realize like the less anyone can understand about foreign policy because it's so complex. And trying to apply a consistent philosophical principle and demand consistency across something as complex as foreign policy, what happens is, yeah, you're consistent. You're consistently wrong. And I don't think we should be, in favor of policing the world and, intervening around the world and spending every American penny policing the world. But let's be real. The United States has policed the world since the foundation of our republic because, the Navy was created to police the world in order to protect American merchant shipping. The whole job of the Navy is to police the world to protect American merchant shipping. And there's a lot of angles you can attack that from. But this idea that the United States can return to some kind of form of isolation after World War II in a nuclear proliferation world is, as it strikes me, is just obnoxiously dense. And it's like you're deliberately backwards, right? In some sense, like if you really want to disengage from the rest of the world so much, like a lot of these ANCAPs should be like the Amish and go live off grid out in the wilds of Alaska and the Aleutians. Just don't be a free rider on the infrastructure that the rest of us paid for, and go live on your experimental, religious, philosophical, political communes up in the day. I won't Randy Weaver them.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I won't pull a Randy Weaver on you, right? I'm not going to Ruby Ridge. You want to live out in the woods alone, that's fine. But, there's a free rider problem here, John. And
let me just, I'm going to push back a little bit because I agree that applying the non-aggression principle to foreign policy would be messy. Okay. I'm not trying to do that. I think we do need a mindset, though. The United States government, the United States military should be doing far, far, far less. And I think we're seeing, whether it's both on the Democratic side or the Republican side, we see people that want to do more. And I do think U.S. intervention, U.S. foreign policy, U.S. meddling is counterproductive today. I think here's one example. The Associated Press had a story on Libya, right? We haven't heard a lot about Libya, but apparently, if you look at Libya now, it's basically a war zone. You have warlords that are fighting each other there. Why are they fighting each other? Because we got rid of Muammar Gaddafi. And why did we do it? Like, he was actually less troublesome over that last 20 years, than he had been a long time.
So but just to play the devil's advocate here, Muammar Gaddafi should have been able to commit acts of terrorism and kill innocent people and blow up planes and never have to answer for that.
I think removing Gaddafi was a mistake,
so he should have been allowed to commit an act of terrorism like the Lockerbie bombing, and he should be allowed to commit acts of aggression. But if we come in and we step in and we kill him, we're the bad guy.
I think did we declare anything in that? Did we have a vote?
Is it the declaration that really makes it moral, John, or is it the act of retribution itself? I mean, a piece of paper is not
the declaration
what makes
matters.
It's not a piece of paper that makes an act moral, really, or not. It's a question of is it really truly justice? Justice predates the piece of paper.
But you just told me, Austin, that you have no interest in policing the world. And if we do want to go and take out rogue leaders who are doing awful things, that's what you're doing. And it's not going to end with Gaddafi. We're just going to go one after another whenever we have opportunity. Is that what we want to be doing? I don't think we do. And I think what we're seeing in Libya today is the reason why. Libya is more violent today than it was under Gaddafi. And I don't think Gaddafi is a good guy. I think he was an evil man. But we shouldn't be running around, taking out dictators that we don't like just because we can. I don't think that is the intention.
Sure we can. Absolutely, we can, and we should, because if you note, if you understand a single thing about the way the world works and the way that evil works, is that they have absolutely no limiting principles we have been antagonized and put into position. It wasn't like with World War II. It wasn't like we were policing the world then. When we were isolationist, they came and they put one right across our nose at Pearl Harbor. And then after that, it was like, okay, we're done with this. Because after World War I, we did pull back. We did pull away. We did say we don't want any of this. We did a little League of Nations stuff for a while, and then we're like, we're done with this. We just want to be alone. We don't want anybody to bother us. We didn't bother anybody, and they still attacked us, right? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, they didn't want to deal with the Mohammedan pirates. They didn't want to deal with the pirates of Tripoli, right? But they still had to go, and they still had to kill the pirates because the pirates didn't leave us alone, right? I'm not saying that we have to kill every single terrorist in the world that we come across, or every dictator, or depose every regime. Can we spend less on the military? Yes, absolutely. But yeah, the moral principle itself, I think, holds that if you have someone like a Muammar, it's like if you had a bullet. This is the anarchist question, really, here, isn't it? Right? If you had a bullet that was paid for by the U.S. taxpayer, okay, and you had somebody who was. And this is a hypothetical. You might say it's absurd, but I invite you to consider it for a moment. You've got somebody who's taken hostages, right? We got American hostages in Hamas, right? But the bullet was paid for by stolen taxpayer dollars, right? And you can shoot the bullet and take out the terrorist, right, and save the American hostages. Or you can say, well, the taxation that created the bullet that paid for it was theft, and also that terrorist didn't have anything to do with me. He didn't attack me. He's only attacking those other people, and I don't recognize the American nation state. These are people that could be whatever. I'm so highly individualist and atomistic. I care nothing about my fellow American citizens. So yeah, I'm not going to use the bullet. I would shoot the bullet. Right? It's like when Trump took out the Iranian general, right? And when you do things like that, you know what you do, John? Just like when you spank your child. What are you doing? You're sending a message, right? Sometimes you have to send a message. And if you've got a bullet and it's already paid for and it's pointed at the head of the terrorist and he's holding hostages, you take the shot, in my mind. But you wouldn't take the shot?
No,
you don't take the shot.
Again, this is a kind
American
of central
hostages.
It's a kind of central. What you're talking about, an actual hostage situation?
Yeah, like Hamas right now, for example, like the American terrorists or the American hostages that were taken by Hamas. We don't go in there and we don't kill Hamas and get our
hostage situation is a different type of situation.
That's the situation
right?
I put up. You don't shoot the.
I didn't hear you describe it as a hostage situation. I think in situations like that, the U.S. government does. Obviously, if a country or a terrorist group like that, I mean, and that even under the non-aggression principle would even apply here. Like you have civilians that are at risk or something. I think what we were talking about before was a little bit different than that. Like whether or not we should take out rogue dictators who are just not friendly to us. And that's kind of what the CIA's been doing for the last, 70, 80 years, right? Like they've been involved in all these things. You can go to the Congo. You can look back at all these, the CIA was very actively
trying to kill Che Guevara.
Yeah,
who was trying to use nuclear weapons against the United States. I mean, because it's like the problem with the libertarian foreign policy. The problem with libertarian foreign policy is it's like always in a vacuum, as if like the only reason that like other countries want to attack us or kill our citizens is because the United States is messing with them, rather than like if you look at the way Henry Kissinger looked at it, when it comes to foreign policy, every nation is just trying to get the most advantage for their own people over everyone else, right? They're not applying consistent moral or philosophical principles. Everybody's just trying to gain an advantage over one another. And when it comes to Che Guevara, he's just trying to get an advantage for his people, and he's willing to bring nukes into Cuba and to try and nuke the United States. I'm not going to let him. Like, if the CIA has to kill Che Guevara to stop him from putting nuclear weapons in the United States, take the shot, right, John? Take the shot.
So, but you're talking about something with virtually no limiting principle, and you don't seem concerned about any constitutional restraints either.
No, there are
like this idea that you can do it. You want executives to be able to do this unilaterally.
No, do I want them to be able to do it unilaterally? Is the question? No, I think that there should be checks and balances. But
there's not today, though, Austin.
Sure there are. The Congress.
When was the last time Congress voted on one of these?
They do. They vote on the continuing resolutions. And Congress should claw back some of their from some of the authority that they have ceded to the executive. But Congress funds this. They vote for it. They fund it. And so if I say I'm not giving you proper authority for this, but you're giving me the money to do it, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you are tacitly saying that I'm fine with this if you're paying for it, right? So they've got the powers of the purse, they're the one voting on it. So I mean, in some sense, they are tacitly approving it, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
I think we both agree on that's a malarkey situation where Congress has no voice in whether or not we engage in the conflict, but then they are going to be looked at to fund it.
Yeah, well, and they do, right? So
I know, but that's the problem.
But here's the thing: here's the thing: they're all cowards. They don't want to have the moral responsibility of saying that they did it. And here's the thing: it's not necessarily more moral because Congress says it's okay, John. Right? Right is right no matter who says it or who votes on it. Right? Just because something has undergone a democratic process does not automatically give it it may give it a veneer of justice, but justice can often precludes action by through the democratic processes the United States has set up. The democratic processes are set up in order to prevent power, right? Prevent power from getting away, and it does get run away. But it's this whole concept of, well, was it written down in the Constitution? Is that what makes it moral? No, because obviously morality predates the Constitution, specifically like in the First Amendment when it says the freedom of speech. So right is right, no matter who says it or who does it or who goes through the democratic processes. Those democratic processes.
I'm not saying that anything is moral or immoral because whether or not Congress votes yay or nay on it. I'm saying the procedure itself matters, and we need to have lawmakers voting on these conflicts before we get into them. We can't have executives unilaterally going in and lopping heads off, and that's that's what we're doing today, and I don't think that's good.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that Javier Milei's realistic foreign policy strikes me as much more. I think that Javier Milei has a very strong moral compass that American libertarians lack when it comes to foreign policy. And there's some kind of strange simping for dictators and terrorists that goes on amongst the American liberty movement that I really I violently reject. And I think that it's time for us to consider a new path. And I really believe that once we can throw the baby out with the bathwater, entirely, the non-aggression principle, then we can look at something new, something that is established. I do believe in the Constitution. I do believe in limiting principles, but I'm not so blind as to believe that that just implementing libertarian ideals or having the United States act in such a certain way in foreign policy is going to lead to happy gumdrops or raindrops or even better outcomes, right? It is quite possible that there could be worse outcomes if we applied libertarian policy, at least as it's understood in the United States, to foreign policy. There's the unintended consequences cut both ways. Blowback, that whole concept that we hear from libertarians endlessly, that works both ways, right? It's only blowback when it happens to us, not when we are acting on them, right? It's just all these inconsistencies that I find to be infuriating. Anyways, John, anything that you want to share with us before we let you go, brother?
Not really. I mean, we got one more before Christmas, but yeah. Obviously, like I say every week, I'm on Substack. Find my stuff, John Milton, the Take by John Miltimore. And other than that, I think what is the date? We got one more Monday until Christmas.
Yeah, one more Monday until Christmas, and we will be here, John. Do me a favor, finish the rest of the manifesto, and then come back next week because I want to fight with you about the rest of it.
Discuss it.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, man. Merry Christmas. We'll see you again next week. All right.
Have a great one, AP. Good talking.
Thanks very much. Very much. Guys, click that like button, okay? It's time for us to have a Merry Christmas. See that text line up there? 1776 to 844-558-9626. Text the number 1776 to that number on the screen. 844-558-9626. 844-558-9626. Text 1776. We'll be right back with JD Tuccillo to talk about bans on ghost guns, sightings. So it's the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Merry Christmas. Please say Merry Christmas, dang it. You all better say Merry Christmas too. No, I'm just kidding. You may say Merry Christmas, you say Happy Hanukkah, but the Jews, like, you know, they celebrate Hanukkah, but it's not like the high holy days, right? So you don't need to like aggressive. You never really get the Jews like aggressively saying, we say Happy Hanukkah in our household. Can you imagine somebody saying Happy Holidays, but like demanding that it'd be like, that they'd be like, we say Happy Holidays in our household, and then enforcing that? Like, I'm a militant agnostic. You know what I'm saying? It's like militant. I don't know, and you don't either. I don't know either. But my next guest, he says Happy Holidays around at the whenever he goes to the Shop Mart or whatever. The Shop Smart, Shop S Smart. JD Tuchili from Reason Magazine joining us live this morning. Good morning, JD. He's on the phone. Hey, JD.
Hey, good morning to you.
Honestly, I kind of like Christmas because people are so hateful and awful to each other during the year that it's like for a very brief period or even like a couple of days, people are kind of smiling a little bit more, a little more happy. I know you're out in the desert. Does that dampen the Christmas spirit, not having like the mistletoe and the holly and the evergreens and the snow? Or is Christmas in the desert a little something different, JD?
You know, I grew up in New York, New England, where it was, snow and cold and wet, the whole bit. And so it took some adjustment to get out of here. But I've been here for 25 years now. I've adjusted to the desert. I've adjusted to the idea that you can wrap lights around a cactus as long as you're very, very careful. And I kind of like Christmas out here. You can go outside, you can talk to people. No, it's really nice. It's really nice around here this time of year.
I'm really glad. But, the fight for freedom doesn't take holidays. It doesn't take vacations. I see that you're very prolific over at Reason.com. And I don't mean to say anything mean against everybody who works there, JD, but it really has been difficult to read Reason in recent years with the attacks on Javier Milei and just some of the odd positions that I see from some of the other editors out there. I don't know if COVID-19 broke some of them. Some of you, but JD, you have really stayed, true blue, true north libertarian with your writings. So I'm always like telling people, and they're like, Reason has fallen off. I'm like, you need to read JD Tuchili. And JD, you wrote a great article about the fears of ghost gun bans because of Luigi Mangione. I kind of take a little bit of an opposite tack. I found it strange that leftists weren't all over the gun bans. That the calls for banning ghost guns, we've been having a conversation a little bit about it because of this killing, but the left, for whatever reason, doesn't really have the same zeal for it now that they're murdering CEOs. Have you noticed this?
I have noticed that. Apparently, assassination is good, and I guess if you're going to, assassinate someone, you need the tools for it, as long as it's the right people you're assassinating. I will note that the radical left has a history of that. They've never been shy about killing people they don't like. So I'm just sorry it came to our shores. But yeah, there's been some talk about the ghost gun bans again. I think part of the dampening of that is their approval in many quarters about this particular murder. But also a lot of it, I think, is the realization that there's not a lot they can do. The whole idea of ghost guns, and I think this idea is sinking further and further into society. The reason the whole idea of ghost guns came around is because they're resistant to regulation. People developed the idea of building guns at home so that if you ban the commercial production and sale of them, it wouldn't matter that much. You could still make them yourself. And as that idea sinks into the culture, I think that's starting to register a little bit that they're running out of things they could do about it.
There's just so many different ways you look at this. I mean, it's impossible for them to regulate it, isn't it, JD? There's what could they possibly do? I mean, anybody can buy a 3D printer and print a ghost gun.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, the one thing that they talk about all the time is like banning kits. Okay, fine. So that the prepackaged kits of parts that you buy online, they could probably outlaw those or further regulate the specifically designed gun components, and talk about tightening up on 80% receivers, for instance. So those are partially finished receivers, the part of the gun that makes the cartridges go bang. They can reduce it to the point where it has to be less formed before you can sell it as an unfinished gun part. But I mean, that's really fiddling around the edges. Okay, fine. So you ban the prepackaged parts. People buy them separately. Or they develop designs like the FGC9, which we should talk about, which is exploded around the world as a partially 3D printed gun that is then finished with parts from the hardware store. Hardware stores in all the continents. It can be made anywhere without using commercial gun parts. So at the end of the day, all they can do is ban a few commercial kits that make it a little bit easier, but they then just drive more innovation, and they send people back to their own workshops. There's not much more they can do.
I'm speaking to JD Tuchili. He's a writer for Reason Magazine, wrote a piece this last week about how control freaks are using the Brian Thompson, that's the United Healthcare CEO, murder to peddle ghost gun bans. He says more laws couldn't have stopped the crime and won't stop people from making their own weapons. Do you think that ghost guns are misunderstood, JD?
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, I've had these conversations. I mean, you and I have talked before that I've built actually more than one at this point now, AR-15 from an 80% receiver. And there's an idea out there that you buy a kit. I mean, there are people who think that a ghost gun means you went online and you bought a kit, that it really is just a disassembled gun. And you brought it back home and you screwed it together, and now you've got a gun. And I actually ran into this personally with friends who were like, oh, I showed them the rifle, and they're like, oh, you used to put together a kit though, right? And I said, I actually had to drill and mill this. And
yeah.
I had to use power tools. And I mean, and they were like, really? They had no conception. They thought a kit meant it was Legos. You just pop them together. No, that is not what this means.
Yeah.
I go to my workshop. I used a drill press, and I milled out metal, and there's a lot more to it. So yes, there's definitely a misconception about what a ghost gun is. With people really think you just put parts together. No, it's more than that.
I can't tell you how many plastic parts that I have that look like guns at the bottom of my toolkit, and they're like the Dremel obviously dug too deep, and now you can't use it at all. So yeah, it's a lot harder than people think. I tried it a few. If you buy an AR-15, if you buy like the completed lower, which you have to go through the criminal background check for, then yeah, the rest of it can be sort of like gun Legos. But even still, of the AR-15s that I've built, where I've gone through the process to do it with like Legos, you still have to have some like fine motor skills, and you have to really be insistent on putting this together. I mean, this kid obviously was really brilliant in many ways and kind of stupid in other ways. Because let's sidestep this conversation from ghost guns to the killer because of his claims, easily debunkable, about healthcare outcomes and insurance when it comes to the United States spending money on insurance. Some people say, and honestly, JD, I've even heard libertarians say that single payer would fix many of the problems that we have with our third-party payer system. Yeah, but it would also break a lot of other things. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, this guy, Luigi Mangione, has a TikTok level of economic understanding. I understand that he's ticked off about the healthcare system. No one seems to understand yet what he's angry about, since it comes from money and actually didn't work with United Healthcare. But okay, fine. He's angry. Lots of people are angry these days. A lot of people could use some calming down these days. But the fact of the matter is, the big problem with healthcare, not just in this country, in a lot of places, is third-party payer. And that means whether you're talking about private insurance or the government, the fact that the person using the medical care, us, isn't paying our own medical bills, somebody else is, means that we're disconnected. Our demand is disconnected from the payment, the price of what's being used. And that means that we tend to, in all countries, in the US and Canada, the UK, Germany, demand more from the medical system than it can supply based upon available resources, because, like I said, we're not actually paying for what we're using. What this means is that everything ends up getting rationed, and the U.S. kind of gets rationed by price, although not really, because our insurance companies or Medicaid or Medicare pick it up. In the UK, it gets rationed by availability. They'll just tell you, no, it costs too much to treat your cancer. We're not going to pay for it. If you want to pay for it out of pocket, go to the U.S. or they actually do a private medicine in Britain. Go to a private doctor in a private hospital there. In Canada, they'll stick you on a wait list and just wait till you die 6 or 8 months down the line. If they get down to the end of the line, then you get your care. And in Germany budgets its state healthcare system on a quarterly basis. And if the money is used up for that quarter's budget, they just stop paying doctors for seeing state patients. So the doctors then will just see the private pay patients and the privately insured patients. So that's controlled by budget caps. So, I mean, no matter what you want, you can't have free care You can't have unlimited care, and you can't have high quality care all together at the same time, unless you're, Elon Musk and paying for anything you want on a whim. But the rest of us are stuck with the reality of a world of limited resources. And when we're not paying for our own care, our demand is get disconnected from what's available and from the payment for it, and that causes problems. And single payer removes even the minor controls, the minor disciplines imposed by competition among health insurers. You go to single payer, you're not going to end up with some kind of a glorious health system where you don't have to worry about paying. You're going to end up with something that just looks like the Department of Motor Vehicles running your doctor's office.
And JD, isn't it also the case that Obamacare, in a way, irreparably broke the system? Because if you can buy health insurance after you have a pre-existing condition, then the whole house of cards falls apart. The insurance companies, in order to stay in business, they have to delay, deny, defend, if you will, right?
Oh, absolutely. The insurance companies, by the way, aren't making huge profits. You'll notice that when people quote their profits, they quote dollar amounts because the dollar amounts sound huge. But when you talk about, okay, across the industry, what does this represent as a percentage? What kind of percentage profit it's earning? It's usually around 3%, which is not an impressive profit margin. It's not huge. They've got to control their costs somehow. Now, are they great people? Are these, is everybody happy with their experience at their health insurance company? Absolutely not. There are definitely problems there. But when you can sign up for insurance, and I'll tell you, because my wife is, she only acts like my mother sometimes. My wife is a physician, and she deals with patients who, when they go to the hospital, don't have any coverage. They'll sign them up for Medicaid right then and there in the hospital so they get paid by the state. That, of course, just encourages people to not pay any premiums, to not sign for anything until they actually have to go in because they got hit by a car or they got sick or they got whatever else. So you end up with no discipline in the system whatsoever. These people who've never paid any premiums, they're just expenditures when they go in there, sign up, and have their bills paid. We actually haven't, and we talk about the idea of health insurance. We haven't had true health insurance in this country for a long time. Health insurance is meant to cover the unexpected. Not your doctor's visits, not your vaccinations. It's meant to cover getting cancer. It's meant to cover getting hit by a truck. It's meant to cover a fall down a flight of stairs, something that you really could not have anticipated, but that runs up high costs. Under Obamacare, they banned what they called catastrophic plans, which was the last presence of true health insurance. Catastrophic plans had high deductibles. You paid for your stuff out of pocket unless something really unanticipated happened, which is the only thing insurance really should be covering. You can't even really offer those plans anymore. And so what we have right now is kind of prepaid medicine, and the costs keep on running up again because of that third-party payer problem.
JD, that's a great insight. I'd like to ask you about something else, a little off the cuff, didn't prepare you for it, but I'm sure you're keen to Bitcoin. What do you think about the push for governments around the world to create strategic Bitcoin reserves? Apparently Russia is going to do it, and Donald Trump is talking about doing it. How do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings about it. I think what is happening here is with countries like Russia, they're looking for reserves of value that they can then turn to because they no longer have access to the Western-dominated international financial system. A lot of countries have been buying vast gold reserves and building. If you follow this at all, central banks around the world have been stocking up on gold now for the last 5 years or so, especially since the Ukraine war started and the West kind of cracked down on the flows of cash in an attempt to shut Russia out of the system. What happened is that frightened a lot of governments. Like, okay, if the West is going to use politicize the financial system for good or for ill, we've got to find alternatives to it. So that's where you started seeing gold flows. But it's expensive to transport gold. If Turkey and Russia are engaged in trade and they can't pass cash through the international banking system because the U.S. says, no, we're going to cut that off, flying a plane load of gold is heavy and it's expensive. Bitcoin transfers, of course, are much easier. Bitcoin is, I want it. I like the idea. I really want it to be used as a currency for trade, for people to make purchases. It cannot be, don't have to go through a third party, can't be politicized and controlled. And that's what state actors are doing. Like Russia with forming a Bitcoin reserve. It's going to drive up the value. I'm hoping that it drives its use as a currency. I guess it's just something we have to sit back and see if it works. But it's also inevitable as people look for alternatives, people, governments, individuals, alternatives to an increasingly politicized international financial system.
JD, last question. Any theories as to the origin of all the drone sightings in New Jersey and in California and other places?
All I can tell you is that I noticed that they're not showing up over the western states. I think we all know what would happen if drones of unknown origin start flying over people's homes in places like Arizona and New Mexico and Utah. The line on the ground being examined pretty quickly. I don't know. My suspicion, of course, is that the government knows a lot more about them than that they're revealing. But I also know that crazes happen from time to time. People do make mistakes. I am hoping that we find out the truth in the end. But I do suspect that the government knows more. And that this is something that eventually they'll tell us about, hopefully.
My theory is this, that one, that yes, there's probably an unusual amount of drones that are probably flying around. And then two, a lot of trolls on Reddit are like going out and flying their drones at night for the purpose of freaking everyone out. And then number three, schizoid, psychotics and people who are on drugs or have some disorders are looking at lights in the sky and saying everything is a drone. JD Too Chilly, you write at Reason Magazine. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we let you go, friend?
No, just my newsletter. I write 3 columns a week for a reason, and if you sign up for the Rattler, which is my newsletter, you get them delivered to your inbox each time they come out. That way you don't have to go chasing after them. So I hope your folks will do that.
I'm a subscriber, and I read everything that comes across my desk that has the name JD Too Chilly on it. JD, you're a great writer. We say Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Holidays to you and all your family. I hope we celebrate everything, and I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, okay?
The same for you, and thank you very much. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah.
There you go, and Happy Hanukkah. That is JD Too Chilly. He's too chilly. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by viewers and listeners just like you. Can you bless me with something?
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
Excuse me? Listen, I love if you exit the show today through the Grift Shop. Check out all of our awesome Department of Government Efficiency merchandise. Doge shirts. Sign of Jonah got a bomber jacket. I got a mouse pad, and they make great gifts. And if you have a patriot in your life who loves Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, get him some Doge merchandise exclusively sold at forlibertyshop.com. But what I really would like to ask from you guys today, before you leave, is to text the number on the screen. Text 1776. Let me screen all the way up there. Hold on. This will be easier. Then I can reach it. Yeah, text 1776 to the number right there. 844-558-9626. Right there. Text the number 1776 to 844-558-9626. Now, some of you are going to do that, and you're going to be like, I didn't get anything back. You might already be on my text messaging list. But if you're not, if you don't get text messages from me, then you need to text that number right there. Text 1776 to 844-558-9626. And then you will be able to be on our text message list, right? Good? Sound good? Barney Styles, Look It's Liz, Sign of Jonah, Rare Camellia, Luke Sacker, Pete the Cat, Dad Bod Baboon, Luke Sacker, Frickety, Sign of Jonah. Did I say Sign of Jonah? And all of our friends like Blue Trike and Richard Bell. Richard, hope you feel better, sir. I know you're going to urgent care later this morning. The thoughts and prayers with you, sir. We love you out there. Cecilia as well. Only 4 work days left of the year for you. Cecilia, you're so lucky. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 more at least. I'll definitely be back next Monday for sure. We got the rest of this week. So don't worry, you're still going to get your daily dose of liberty in the mornings. The Wake Up America show. Make sure that you guys hit that text line, 844-558-9626. Text the number 1776. Sign up for our news alerts and for our marketing packages. Yes, you will get coupons and things like that. Promise you that we won't spam you like crazy. but it is a marketing scheme. Yes, scheming. Austin always scheming to give us more products for a price that we shall agree on. Maria was kind of mad at me about the pillows and the price of the pillows, but you know, I'm not like some healthcare executive. I'm not like denying insulin or anything, Maria, okay? So just, you know, buy the damn pillow, okay? Or get some coffee. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow on Tuesday. Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Consider what kind of economic future we want for the next generation. Trade policies shape our lives more than we realize, from the price we pay for goods to the jobs we rely on. What are your thoughts on the balance between free trade and protectionism? Share this video and join the conversation. Let's debate how history can guide our economic choices today.